All right, welcome everybody. Glad you're here. Welcome to Supply Side. Hello. So, our session today with Givaudan is going to be presented by, let me just introduce our presenters today. I'm sorry I'm holding papers, but I didn't have this in my hand beforehand, so I'm just going to keep this in front of me here. So, we've got two speakers today joining us. We've got Kim Duncan. Kim Duncan is the head of Consumer Insights, Taste and Well-Being at Givaudan. And she spends every day thinking about consumers. This is her lifeblood. For over 20 years, she's worked to perfect her skill, knowing just the right question to ask to get the most insightful answer. Kim has spent 15 of those years at Givaudan focusing specifically on food and beverage consumers. She's oftentimes the guiding voice behind the scenes, assisting marketing and product developers in cultivating some of your favorite food and beverage products. Kim possesses a keen ability to translate consumer data into relevant insights, and she holds a bachelor's degree in marketing and international business from Ohio University. Welcome, Kim. I've neglected to say, too, my name is Fran Schoenwetter. I am with Informa, Supply Side Supplement Journal and Food and Beverage Journal, and I'm the Director of Content Marketing. Also joining us today is Dan Sousa. And Dan is also, of course, with Givaudan, and he is the global marketing manager for Givaudan's health and branded ingredient portfolio. He's applied an entrepreneurial spirit, technical knowledge, and sales and marketing expertise to a wide range of botanicals throughout his 20-plus year career in the industry. Some people call him Mr. Cranberry. Mr. Sousa has thrived in the dynamic environment of Givaudan for the past 5 years. His responsibilities include clinical trial development, product management, health claim registration, strategic category management, and product development. He holds a BA in marketing from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, a place I used to live. And I'm so glad that they're both here today. I'm going to step aside and let them do their presentation. After the presentation, we will not be doing audience Q&A, but I will have a bit of a Q&A up on the stage. So thank you again, and here we go.
Thank you.
You stand up?
You want to stand up?
Feels weird to sit down.
Okay,
so I'm
that's
standing
good with
up.
me.
All right, thanks for coming today. So the first part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about a research study that we did to try to understand consumers a little bit more in the sports nutrition space. We're supposed to have a clicker.
There we go.
Oh.
Forward one. There you go.
There we go. Okay. All right. So I don't really know that this first sentence is really a big shocker, but something we kind of try to follow at Givaudan is the idea of, in the food and beverage space, there are no one-size-fits-all products anymore. Those products really exist, and it's very, very hard to come out with those types of products anymore in a market that's really saturated with a lot of products. So it's really about trying to find the right product for the right person. And for this one, we've been talking about sports nutrition for quite a while, and really kind of what that means. And the one thing that we really keep coming back to is the fact that in the sports nutrition category, you have athletes, but you also have non-athletes that are consuming this. So really, what does this mean for that category, and how can we maybe tap into that non-athlete that is also in this space? So we ran a survey, which is what I do. So they came to me and they're like, how can we understand more about consumers and really how they are in this space? So we did an online survey, and we targeted consumers who consume sports nutrition products, as well as we wanted them to engage in some level of physical activity, because I mentioned kind of that athlete versus non-athlete. But the challenge is, how do you really find those people? So, and how do you ask questions around physical activity that you don't get those aspirational or socially acceptable answers? I know a lot of times when people are trying to identify athletes, it's kind of like, how many days a week do you work out? And if they say daily, then you're like, all right, they're an athlete. If they don't, then they're not a non-athlete. But if I get asked that question, I might say, I work out 1 to 2 days a week, which is true, but I really should be working out 3 to 4. So I will pick that answer, because that's the answer I want to be. So the way we've tried to avoid that in situations like that, where people can really give those socially acceptable aspirational answers, is to provide a list of statements. It's really hard to choose an aspirational statement when there's something that really, really resonates with you. So what we did here was we asked 7 different statements that varied in things that related to physical activity. And then based on how they answered those questions, we were able to create these 3 buckets based on their activity level. So you can kind of see how they fall out. The bulk of the people kind of fell in that moderately active group. And then we had the highly active people and the occasionally active people at the other 2 ends. So to dig into these a little bit more, as you can kind of see, there's definitely demographic differences between those, as well as really how that physical activity is kind of described. One of the things that I get asked all the time is around that younger age group, whether you call it Gen Z or you call it millennials or you call it the 18 to 34-year-olds, everybody always wants to know what's going on with that group. And the assumption is that group is the one that always wants more. They're more adventurous. They want more adventurous foods. They like more adventurous flavors. They do more exercise than other groups. And that's true, as you can see. But there's a lot of 18 to 34-year-olds that also fell into that moderately active group. So assuming that all 18 to 34-year-olds are highly active could really be a miss, because there's a group of these people that are not in that highly active group. The other thing that I think was really important about defining these groups is really to understand those levels of activity. So somebody that's in that highly active group, their physical activity is really about being super competitive. They do structured training. They're very, very into it. Versus somebody that's just occasionally active, they prioritize other aspects of their life over physical activity. So do you think they want the same product? Maybe. But there's a really good chance they want 2 different products, or if it is the same product, they have to be positioned a little bit differently as to whether they're highly active or they're occasionally active. So then the next part of the survey that we really wanted to do was ground the space. So we do this a lot to where we want to define what we're talking about so that what we think it is the same thing that the consumers are answering to. We do it a lot of times with flavors. There's lots of flavors consumers might not know what they taste like, so we'll give them a description so that way we know when we're creating somebody like that flavor, they liked it based on the description. So it was kind of the same thing we did here. We could just say, do you buy sports nutrition, or how likely would you be to buy sports nutrition products? Somebody says they would, we go on with the survey, but our idea of sports nutrition products might be different from theirs. So what we did was we created a statement. There was a lot more to it than this, but this gives you the gist of it. We identified what products fall into that space of that nutrition category, as well as then kind of said you would consume this for these reasons, which would kind of target that athlete, and then you would consume it for these reasons, which would kind of target that non-athlete. That way, we know that if they said they would buy products in the sports nutrition category, we know that how we define it is what they're saying they would buy. So then what we saw at the end of this, and by doing it this way, it really kind of helped really highlight this. So you can see that when we posed that question to them and set the stage, that the highly active consumers, 76% of them said they definitely or probably would buy sport or products in this category. Compared to the moderately active and the occasional active, they said 56 to 57% said they would buy those. But this is a disconnect because the first question we asked them to qualify for the survey, if you remember, was they had to consume products, which of these products did they consume once a month? Things like sports drinks and energy drinks, protein bars, protein beverages. They said they had to consume them, but when you asked them about sports nutrition beverages or sports nutrition products, they were like, I'm just kind of interested in it. So there's really a disconnect in how these people are kind of perceiving this category. So do we need to think about, changing the label of this category, or maybe creating a completely different category that could help focus to those people that fall into those moderately active and occasionally active groups? So those were the things that, kind of gave us the foundation of the study so that we really kind of understood who we were talking to and kind of set the stage. And then there were some things that came out, throughout the rest of the survey that are really interesting that I wanted to highlight here today. The first thing, I've kind of already mentioned this already, but, there's lots of layers to a consumer. I think a lot of times, a product gets launched and everybody's like, oh, I need to do this too. So I think it's really important that you don't fall into the trap of the Me Too products. Again, there's lots of products out there. The market's already saturated. So jumping on the bandwagon after another product's been out there might not be the best way. but rather really understanding the many layers of the consumers that are consuming your products and really trying to target in on who you're going to focus on. Again, it goes back to, just making sure you understand as much as you can about that consumer instead of trying to have like that high level solution that maybe doesn't hit anybody. The other thing I think that was really interesting that we found out was claims and nutritional info are primary influencers when people are buying these products. So the claims that you can make on a product, the nutritional info, that's what people are really looking for when they're buying products in this space. But we also found out that aside from like protein and B vitamins, which have really high awareness, most of the ingredients that you include in your products that allow you to make those claims or put some specific nutritional piece on the label, they're not aware of those. So you need the ingredients to be able to make the claims, but the claims are really what consumers are looking for in influencing their decision to buy a product. And then the last part that was really interesting and we thought we wanted to talk about today was the idea of targeting female consumers. Women are prioritizing energy maintenance and weight management. They're in this space just like males are. But when you think about the products that are in this space, the way they are marketed, the way they're packaged, a lot of times they're heavily male focused. Males are in the advertising, males are the font and the packaging and the colors might be a little bit more male oriented. So how can we start thinking about maybe creating a specific line of products that are tailored to women that are in this space? Pre-workout powder might be a great idea, like having an energy-focused pre-workout powder. I know that to me, a lot of the pre-workout powders right now are very focused on males and males in the gym and that sort of thing. So what if you completely changed how you position it, and how you label it, and all the marketing things, and really aim it towards females? So that's kind of when we start thinking about the sports nutrition space, that's where we start. We kind of take what we've learned about consumers and kind of how does that translate into how we work with our customers and how we help build products in this type of space. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he's going to talk about, how the ingredient piece kind of fits in and how that can support what we know about consumers. Thanks.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. So I'm Dan Souza. I was introduced earlier. I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much. So let's get into it.
Oh, the big green button.
Big green
Yeah.
button? Pretty easy. So we're going to talk about, how really what we're talking about in the space here is about making a better version of yourself, or fitter version of yourself. When we talk about fitness, it's typically you might think about, sports, performance only, or muscle. But as Kim just said, the space is really evolving. I kind of liken it to what we've seen happening in the beauty from within space, where it used to be hair, skin, and nails, and everybody had a hair, skin, and nails product. But now what we see in the beauty from within space is people are playing in different spaces, energy, sleep and relax. And we know that holistically, it's going to make you perform better in that beauty from within space. So that same concept of the changing of the space is happening in this sports space, where we're looking at not just energy and physical performance, but mental energy as well, right? How can we be ready to perform on a daily basis? And that might not be sports performance, but just performing your day-to-day activities at your optimal self. So just an overall wellness that we're trying to drive, right? And when we look at this, as we said, we can really dive in and look at specific areas where women, for instance, are looking for products that are energy-focused, pre-workout, as Kim had described. That's not what we typically associate with a sports performance, a sports performance ingredient or solution in the marketplace. And in the end, we need to bring products to market that work, and we need to convince consumers to take a product. And how do we do that? Really with the label claims that we can make. And claims are really information that consumers can take in. Would be the claims that are on a product, or nutritional information, maybe vitamins, fiber content, things of that nature, right? So how do we deliver these products? If you think about a sport product or any product, really it is an ingredient with some marketing associated with it. So it's really important that we select the right ingredients for these products, for the end consumer product that's going to be delivered to the marketplace. So the ingredient delivers all of the features and benefits that you're going to make on your label claims and then on your marketing. If you don't have an ingredient that delivers those benefits and features, you can't make those claims, right? And those claims could be anything from efficacy to a storytelling of where the product came from, naturality of a product, especially in this space, we're really interested in naturally sourced ingredients. Sustainability, as I mentioned. Applicability, we can put it into different applications that consumers are looking for, and that can help to tell the story of an active lifestyle. So selecting an ingredient is really critical. And the question is, how do I select the best ingredient? And we really think the way to do that is to look at branded ingredients. We've done some consumer research to try to understand what's driving consumers to select products with branded ingredients. So a branded ingredient, first and foremost, is typically a trademarked ingredient. So it could be, in an instance that we have in our portfolio, we have a generic turmeric, and then we'll have a turmeric we call TermiPure Gold that has clinical studies. It's got a trademarked ingredient. You can use that. You can use our science. Maybe you can leverage our patents. You can use the unique formulations and all the regulatory work we've done to get to market quicker. So that would be a branded ingredient. Wanted to describe what that is. But what does the consumer associate with branded ingredients is really what's important. And what our research has said is that when consumers see a branded ingredient on a label, what they associate with that, first and foremost, it's a quality ingredient, high quality, high value ingredient. And then they also associate it with science. We see that science really rings true. So the consumers are thinking, okay, I got a quality ingredient that's delivering health benefits, scientifically substantiated health benefits. That combination leads to consumers trusting and being more loyal to products that have branded ingredients in them. So that triad of quality ingredient backed by science leads to trust as a good reason for you to want to use a branded ingredient in your product for any health benefit, but especially in the sports nutrition space as well. So when we look at kind of what is a branded ingredient, what are some of the pillars that we try to build at least our branded ingredients on? We've got 4 of them, really scientifically proven. So first and foremost, how does the product work? What's the mechanism of action? Is there maybe some bioavailability that's superior to something else in the marketplace? So maybe you can use less of the ingredient. Instead of 1.5 grams, we can do it 300 milligrams. Something like that, that's going to give you some application flexibility. Does it have an impact on the microbiome? That's a hot topic. Can we impact the microbiome? Then, of course, does it work for a health benefit? That's really why the consumer is going to take a product. In our space, it's not about taste and flavor. It's really about, I'm taking an ingredient for a purpose of being healthier or having more energy or being able to rest or whatever it may be. So you really want to have strong clinical studies behind a branded ingredient. And if you have those, and that rest of that scientific package, there's a chance that you could get a health claim for the ingredient as well. And that's just going to drive more and more loyalty and awareness of an ingredient. So these are the things that our customers, not necessarily the consumers, are looking for, and these are going to allow them to do the consumer messaging down the road. So first and foremost, you have to have a product that works, and the clinical studies are a way to do it. Another thing that you'll find in the branded ingredient space is there's going to be more of a focus on making the product work well in application. So not just a pill, but can we make it so it can go into gummies, which are of course very hard, or a sachet, or a strip that you can dissolve or put on your tongue, all kinds of different applications. If you have a branded ingredient, probably invest more in showing that the product works in a wider range of applications so that the consumer has choice, the customer has choice. The next thing we would talk about would be regulatory. So, do you have the safety data to back it up? Do you have the registrations in certain jurisdictions? Can you make claims based on any science that you may have done on an ingredient? One thing I should mention too for the efficacy is, can you show that it works in applications? Is it stable in an application? Does it work in the application? That's something I missed on the previous bullet. But from a regulatory perspective, again, is it safe? Do we have any claims that we can make? Things of that nature. And then the final bullet is sustainability. And that's really some more of the storytelling that our consumers are really interested in. Maybe kind of more long form storytelling that maybe it's not going to be on your package so much as it might be in some of your socials, right? Where you're going to talk about where the product came from. Is it traceable? Is it sustainable? How does it impact the people and the environment where it's harvested and grown? How can we give back, both as an ingredient supplier and as a consumer, as a branding partner? So those are the things that you're looking for to build in a brand, and those are the features and benefits that then the customer can go ahead and turn into features and benefits that go on a label that the consumer can, get a deeper understanding of the product and why they're consuming it. So this is just kind of some examples of different ways, from a non-branded ingredient, you might just be like, oh, you can say, 1 pill a day. But, with a branded ingredient, you might be able to say, hey, this is the most bioavailable product on the marketplace, and that's going to allow you to have a lower dose, a more efficacious dose. Or you could say it's the lowest clinically substantiated dose. So you get more to say when there's more behind the ingredient than just a generic ingredient. Again, we talk about different formats. Standard run-of-the-mill generic ingredient might just work well in capsules. But, applications, consumers want choice. They want gummies, they want sachets, they want soft gelatins. And, a branded ingredient would typically have done the background work to show that it not only does it work in that application, but it's stable and can really deliver the goods for the consumer. And then really the cream of the crop is the benefit messaging or claims, depending on what kind of market you're in, what jurisdiction you're in. How can you talk about the product? So from a non-branded point of view, you see, hey, it's a sports recovery product, and that's really as far as you can go. But when you dig into an ingredient that's had clinical studies done on it, and branded ingredient, for instance, we have a turmeric extract that we recently did some work on, and we can make more in-depth claims like, help improve performance, reduce fatigue, it's fast acting, things of that nature. So there's better ways for you to communicate the benefits to the consumer if you have a branded ingredient. So, in the end, what I think we kind of learned today is like we can expand this market. So we can expand the consumer, target. It used to be, the muscle heads, right? And now we've got really anybody in the marketplace in any age group. Women that are looking at energy is kind of in the sports nutrition market, right? Women looking for weight management products, things of that nature. So it's not just protein for sport performance, a big bucket of protein, right? There's a lot of nuance to this space. So we can expand the space. We can expand the benefits that we're looking at. So let's not just look at sports performance, because that's really the basis of the category. But what comes along with that? Joint health. If I'm having high impact sport performance, sport activities, maybe my joints are a little sore. So that's an area we can expand into. Can we expand into blood flow to help recovery? Can we look at focus and attention so I can stay on task? If somebody that's heavy into exercise might really want to stay on task in a biking or type of activity where you really need to be in task. And then memory, how can you stay focused and attention? So these types of benefits are really important so that we can really help deliver physical performance. Not just physical performance again, but physical performance in this new world of physical performance plus mental performance plus overall wellness and well-being. I think that might be the end. Did you want to cover the conclusions?
So I think, just kind of to sum up what we said, you've got, you want to make sure you have the consumer connection, really understanding the health and wellness needs, how those might manifest differently across those different people that fall into the people that are consuming these products. That kind of leads into that product development, really identifying who you want to focus in on. Like, it's not a one size fits all. So really trying to understand how you could have that product that's really going to resonate with who you want it to resonate with. And then really deciding what kind of positioning you want to have and what kind of ingredients can help support the products that you're going to develop and the types of things that you want to use in your marketing campaigns and your social campaigns, what you want to put on the package and that sort of thing, and considering like where a branded ingredient might be the better solution as you're developing those products.
Thank you.
Hello. So I do have a couple of questions, and I'm going to put my notes here. Thank you so much, Kim and Dan.
Yes.
That was fantastic. So I'm just going to dig in a little bit deeper on a couple of the things that you were just talking about. And I also just want to emphasize for our audience members and anyone that's representing a brand here, a consumer brand product, the value. I just want to re-emphasize the value of including branded, clinically studied ingredients, including that branding on your label. I know sometimes there's hesitancy around that. People think that they're giving away a proprietary formula, but consumers want that information and they want to have the power to be able to explore that more. And I know we've really been covering that in the media space quite a
We
bit.
have seen too that consumers are willing to pay a little bit more for it too, so they see the value. It's not just putting it on and hoping that they'll pay for it. They see the value, they see the quality, and they're willing to pay a little bit more.
They want to buy benefits. They don't want to just buy hope.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to the store to buy a benefit. That's the only reason they're going to the store. They want to fix whatever's wrong or support whatever they're doing. So they want a product that works. So the branded ingredient, as I said, helps with the trust and the quality kind of assurance for the consumer.
Yeah, and I guess I would just mention one other thing too, and that's about product format too, because if you talked, both of you, Kim and Dan, about claims on label too, and you have some limitations based upon format of your product too. So if it's a food and beverage format and you don't have a nutrition fact panel on the label, you may have some limitations about the kinds of claims you can put on that label. So I want to re-emphasize that. There are certain claims you can include with a branded ingredient in a food and beverage format, but it does depend upon how it's intended to be consumed. So maybe I'm stating the obvious for this audience, but just want to reinforce that.
Yeah, the nutrition panel versus the supplement panel is key. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble if you're making, let's say, dietary supplement panel claims on a nutrition panel. You have to make sure that you get your ducks in a row there, for sure. So good point.
I wanted to ask you, Kim, a little bit more about the right consumer. You talked about that, really understanding who your consumer is in a very specific way. And I just was hoping you could comment some on some of the tactics you might recommend in terms of really being able to reach the right consumer in the appropriate way based upon, like you may have the same ingredient in two different products. What are the best ways to reach your intended end user, that consumer?
I mean, I think, I said it's one size doesn't fit all. So I think you really have to focus on who you're going to target, and you have to really understand that there's different levels. Like I said, somebody might be like, oh, do you consume sports nutrition products? And people say yes, or they don't, but they don't really know what those are. So you really have to understand, do they understand the space? And how are they really interacting with them? Because those could be very different needs with what they really are seeking those products out for. And just keeping in mind that one size does not fit all. Because I think what happens is you try to create a product for everyone, and then it doesn't hit anybody because you're trying to cover too many bases and it doesn't resonate with anybody.
So it's customizing the product design, not just the packaging, not just the targeted tactical marketing, but really, really customizing product design to be able to meet that consumer right where they are.
Yeah, and understanding that it might only be 14% of the population, but if you get the right product for 14% of the population, you can be really successful versus creating a product that doesn't reach anybody. So
it's almost customizing the population rather than the product first. So you customize that population,
Right.
Then you deliver the right product to them.
Right, you want to hit it out of the park, right? Right, you don't want to just, baseball metaphor, sorry, you don't want to just bunt. So sometimes that matters. I also wanted to ask about bridging that gap between consumer perceptions and categorization. This is really a nuanced kind of question, but maybe again more directed to you, Kim. Just again, that gap between perception and the product categorization.
I think that's again where we have to we define that space. We wanted to make sure that we were grounding our consumers in kind of what we were talking about, what we wanted to know about. I think we live and breathe this space every day, whether it's supplements or food and beverage or whatever. And I think we give consumers way more credit than we probably should, and assume that when we talk about something that they understand that what we're talking about, or that's how they're talking about it as well. So really making sure that we level set what we're talking about so we're all on the same page helps us create better things. Just using flavor as the example, something like yuzu, people don't know what that is. And if somebody says, oh, I love yuzu, and our flavorist knows it tastes like this, but consumers think it tastes like this, well, there's a big disconnect there.
Yeah.
So we'll provide the description for that yuzu so that we make sure we're talking about the same thing. If they say they like it, it's what the flavorist is going to
Or
create.
if they like yuzu and then the product is dark green.
Right. Or there's a
this-
disconnect
there's a-
with the color. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
there's a sensorial disconnection
Yeah.
there. And I just want to circle back again on branded ingredients again and consumer expectations. In the research that you're doing, are you seeing, are you learning about a shifted expectation on the part of consumers? Are they looking for that more carefully?
I think there's a group of consumers that are looking for that, and among that group, they can be really, really successful. There's going to be other consumers that maybe fall into that occasionally active group, and they're good with the generic, and they're not going to pay more for the branded ingredient. But the people that are highly active or moderately active, they're like, oh yeah, I'm all in, because they are seeking, to Dan's point, they're going to the store seeking something out, and if they see the science behind it and they see that brand, they're like, all right, yep, I'm buying it and I'll pay more money. So again, it goes back to who's your consumer? Not everybody is going to pay more for branded ingredients, just really understanding that.
Is there another difference in consumer behavior around repeat purchasing? Because when we're talking about a clinically studied ingredient and those consumers that are willing to invest in that, they may experience more benefit from that. I mean, I can't say anything like that definitively, but is there more commitment for repeat purchasing? Do we see anything like that where that investment in a more researched product
I can
goes?
speak to that. For instance, we're the leaders in cranberry for urinary tract health, and we started off with a branded ingredient, and we've been building on that ingredient for a long time. And our business has grown, and we have very little attrition. We really rarely lose to a competitive product because the product's working for the consumer in the end. So the customer has no real reason. If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. So the ability for us to deliver on the promise to the customer that they can then communicate to the consumer, once they get that consumer hooked, the consumer's not going to go anywhere a lot of times. Unless there's a major shift for some reason, they might go elsewhere. But if we can just stay the course and build those features and benefits into our ingredient that can then be communicated to the consumer, you're going to have customers for life. And that's really the goal.
Yeah, so it pays to invest,
Yeah.
and it pays to support that kind of consumer trust and loyalty. That's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, the consumers say when they see the branded ingredient, they believe that there's science behind it, they believe it's a quality ingredient, and then they're going to be more loyal and they're going to buy it more often. So what else are you asking for, right?
Quality products that work, for sure.
That's why consumers go to the store.
Yeah, why would you buy it anyway? Well, that's all that I have to ask right now. I just want to thank you both again, Kim and Dan, and just make sure there's nothing else that we're leaving out here that you want to add. No pressure, just checking in with you. Anything else?
I would just invite anybody to come visit us at the booth. It's not too far away. I think it's 5533 or 5355, something. 5355. We have some concepts, and we can have a discussion with you about anything that you'd like to learn. But we're here to help you, and we really appreciate you coming down and spending some time with us. Thank you, friend.
Thank you. You're welcome, and thank you, Givaudan.